The first letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between a pizza flyer and a cable bill. I almost tossed it with the junk mail, but the lack of a return address caught my eye. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the message composed of letters cut from magazines, like some cliché ransom note. I saw what you did in the garden last Thursday. Does Grant know about the roses? My name is Lila, and until that moment, I thought I was living the perfect life. Funny how a few words on paper can shatter everything you thought you knew. The roses. My secret project in our backyard, where I'd been secretly digging up Grant's prized rose garden to plant vegetables instead. A small act of rebellion against my husband's obsession with keeping up appearances. He hadn't noticed yet, he barely spent time in the garden anyway. But someone had been watching. My hands trembled as I read the note again. The paper felt heavy, expensive. This wasn't some random prank. I glanced around our quiet suburban street, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt standing at the mailbox. Everything okay, honey? Grant's voice made me jump. He was home early, standing at the bottom of our driveway in his perfectly pressed suit. Always impeccable, always in control. Just bills, I said, stuffing the letter into my jacket pocket. You're home early. Court finished sooner than expected. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. What's for dinner? I thought we could try that new Thai place. You know I hate Thai food, Lila. His tone remained pleasant, but I caught the edge beneath it. I have that charity dinner tomorrow. Need to watch what I eat. I nodded, already mentally recalculating the evening to avoid any friction. Of course. I'll make your chicken. That night, after Grant fell asleep, I sat in our ensuite bathroom, rereading the letter. The roses were such a small thing, but the fact that someone was watching me, documenting my tiny rebellion, it made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Marissa. Coffee tomorrow? Need to talk. I typed back a quick yes before deleting both messages. Grant didn't like Marissa, said she was a bad influence. He didn't know I still met with her regularly. As I crawled back into bed, Grant stirred. Everything all right, he mumbled. Just needed some water. I lied, adding it to the growing pile of small deceptions that had become part of our marriage. I lay awake for hours, wondering who else was watching, what else they knew. The letter felt like a match being struck in a dark room, illuminating things I'd been trying not to see. I met Marissa at our usual spot, a small coffee shop far enough from home that Grant wouldn't accidentally run into us. Another letter had arrived that morning. The garden isn't the only secret you're keeping. Does he know about the money? You look like hell, Marissa said, sliding into the booth across from me. Her bright red lipstick and confident posture were such a contrast to how I felt. Someone's watching me, I said, pulling out both letters. As Marissa read them, I watched her expression darken. The money they mentioned, it's just the emergency fund I've been building. A few dollars here and there from the grocery budget. Smart girl, Marissa nodded. How much? Almost 5,000. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, seeking its warmth. Grant controls all our accounts. I just needed something that was mine. Have you told him about the letters? I shook my head. I tried this morning. He said I was being paranoid, that it was probably neighborhood kids playing pranks. Then he reminded me about his big case coming up and how he needs me to focus on managing his social media presence, not chase shadows. My phone buzzed Grant. Where are you? Mother's stopping by for lunch. Don't forget to wear the blue dress she gave you. Marissa saw my face change. His mother's coming for lunch. I have to go. I started gathering my things, but Marissa grabbed my wrist. Lila, wait. Remember when we traveled through Europe after college? That fearless girl who jumped off cliffs in Greece and told off those creeps in Paris? She's still in there. I forced a smile, but my hands were shaking. That was before Grant. Her voice was gentle but firm. Before he convinced you that everything you do is wrong? It's not like that, I said automatically, then caught myself. It was exactly like that. At home, I found Grant in his study on the phone. I was about to knock when I heard my name. Lila's just being dramatic again. You know how women get. No, I've got it under control. She actually thought I'd believe someone was stalking her. His laugh was cold, unfamiliar. Trust me, she won't cause any problems. I backed away silently, my heart pounding. In the kitchen, I mechanically began preparing lunch, my mind racing. Grant's words echoed in my head, mixing with the threatening letters and Marissa's reminder of who I used to be. The doorbell rang, Eleanor arriving early, of course. I looked down at my outfit. I wasn't wearing the blue dress. Some small rebellions, I decided, were worth the price. The third letter arrived while Grant was at work. This time, there was a photo inside, Grant entering a hotel with a woman I didn't recognize. The note read, "Check behind the painting in his study. You're not the only one keeping secrets." My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stood in Grant's study, staring at the large abstract painting behind his desk. 5 years of marriage, and I'd never questioned why he insisted on hanging such an ugly piece in here. The painting swung away easily, revealing a wall safe. The combination took 3 tries, our wedding date, which Grant had forgotten last year. Inside, I found a stack of papers, hotel receipts, and more photos. So many photos. My phone buzzed. Another text from Marissa. "Did you find it?" I stared at the message. "How did you know?" Check the bottom of the stack. There, beneath everything else, was a photo of Marissa at our coffee shop, talking to a woman with sleek black hair. The same woman from the hotel photo with Grant. The front door clicked open. "Lila." Grant's voice echoed through the house. "Where are you?" I scrambled to replace everything, my heart thundering in my chest. The painting wasn't quite straight when Grant appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing in here?" His tone was light, but his eyes weren't. "Just tidying up." I forced a smile. "You've been so busy with work lately." "That's thoughtful." He straightened the painting with precise movements. "But you know I like my study kept private. Wouldn't want you accidentally misplacing any case files." That night, I lay awake listening to Grant's steady breathing beside me. My phone lit up with a message from Marissa. "Meet tomorrow. We'll explain everything. Don't trust anyone else." I deleted the message, but not before noticing Grant's reflection in the darkened window. His eyes were open, watching me. The next morning, Grant left for work earlier than usual. "Big case today," he said, kissing my cheek. "Don't wait up." I waited 10 minutes after he left before calling Marissa. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. A new email popped up on my phone, from an address I didn't recognize. Inside was a video clip, security camera footage of Grant and the mystery woman entering his office late at night. The timestamp was from 2 days ago. The subject line read, "There's more where this came from. But be careful who you tell. Some friends aren't what they seem." I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the perfect life Grant had built, realizing every piece of it might be a lie, including Marissa. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. "Ready to know the truth?" I took a deep breath and typed back one word. "Yes." The unknown number belonged to Ethan Blake. I hadn't seen him since college, but there he was, sitting across from me at a diner 30 miles from home, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "I'm a prosecutor now," he said. "Grant's firm has been on our radar for months. Money laundering, evidence tampering, but we could never get close enough." My coffee grew cold as I flipped through the documents. Bank statements, offshore accounts, photos of Grant with people I'd never seen before. The woman from the hotel appeared in several of them. "What about Marissa?" My voice cracked. "Is she involved?" Ethan's expression softened. "She was helping us gather evidence, Lila. Until yesterday." "What happened yesterday?" He hesitated. "She's gone dark. Her apartment's empty, her phone's disconnected. We think Grant's people made her." The diner's fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the air too thin. "I have to go home. Grant will notice." "Actually," Eleanor's voice cut through the air like a blade. She stood by our booth, her designer purse clutched like a shield. "Grant's wondering why you missed our lunch date." My stomach dropped. Eleanor slid into the booth beside me, effectively trapping me against the wall. "Mother, I can explain." "Can you explain why you're meeting with a prosecutor who's trying to destroy my son?" Her smile remained pleasant, perfect for any onlookers. "Or perhaps you'd like to explain the little investigation you've been conducting in Grant's study?" Ethan started to speak, but Eleanor raised her hand. "Mr. Blake, I suggest you drop whatever case you're building. Things have a way of backfiring in our circle. Are you threatening a federal prosecutor?" Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "I'm protecting my family." Eleanor turned to me. "As should you, Lila. Remember everything Grant's given you. Remember where you came from." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "Dinner's at 7. Wear the blue dress this time." She paused. "Oh, and Lila? Grant's changed the safe combination. Just in case you feel like more tidying." After she left, I sat there, trembling. Ethan reached across the table, but I pulled back. "I can protect you," he said. "We can build a case. You couldn't protect Marissa." The words came out sharper than I intended. My phone buzzed, a text from Grant. "Coming home early. Have a surprise for you." Attached was a photo of my emergency fund envelope, the one I'd hidden in the back of my closet. Empty. I have to go, I whispered, gathering my things. Lila, wait. But I was already running, knowing I was heading straight back into the lion's den, but not seeing any other choice. I found Marissa's phone in our mailbox that morning, wrapped in a note. Still want to play detective? The screen was cracked, but it powered on, revealing dozens of missed calls from Ethan and one final text message sent to an unknown number. They know. Get out now. Grant watched me prepare dinner that evening, leaning against the kitchen counter with a glass of wine. I've been thinking, he said, swirling the red liquid. We should renew our vows. The knife I was using to chop vegetables stilled. What? Show everyone how strong we are. Mother's already planning it. He moved behind me, hands on my shoulders. Unless you have other plans? My phone buzzed in my pocket, Ethan's number. Grant's fingers tightened slightly. No other plans, I said, deleting the message without reading it. Good. He kissed my cheek. Oh, and I hired a new social media assistant for the firm. You remember Victoria? From the hotel photos. The knife slipped, nicking my finger. Grant handed me a tissue, his smile never wavering. I thought you might appreciate the help, he continued. You seem distracted lately. Later that night, I slipped out to the convenience store at the corner, desperate for a moment alone. The clerk, Rosa, had become a familiar face during my late-night escapes. More trouble at home? She asked, noting my shaking hands as I paid for coffee. Just wedding planning. I forced a laugh. Renewing our vows. Rosa's expression changed. My sister renewed her vows too. 3 days later, she disappeared. Police found her car at the airport, ticket to Mexico in her name. She leaned closer. Ticket she never bought. My coffee cup crumpled slightly. Why are you telling me this? Because her husband was a lawyer too. She slid a business card across the counter. Women's shelter. Just in case your wedding planning gets too stressful. At home, Grant was in his study, door ajar. I heard Victoria's voice. Everything's arranged. The account transfers will look legitimate after the ceremony. And Marissa? Taken care of. But Ethan Blake is still sniffing around. He'll back off once Lila signs the papers tomorrow. Nobody walks away from a renewal ceremony looking innocent. I backed away silently, heart pounding. In our bedroom, I found a large envelope on my pillow. Inside was a photo of Marissa's empty apartment, a plane ticket to Mexico with my name on it, and divorce papers already marked where I should sign. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Ready to disappear? This time, I recognized the number. It was Rosa's. The vow renewal ceremony was set for sunset. I stood in our bedroom, staring at the white dress Grant had chosen, when Eleanor entered without knocking. Victoria's done wonders with the decorations, she said, adjusting my pearls. Such a shame about Marissa not being here. Missing persons cases rarely end well. My hands stilled on the dress. What did you say? Oh, didn't Grant tell you? They found her car this morning. Such terrible timing, right before your special day. She smiled tightly. The police might want to question you, given your recent meetings. The pearls felt like a noose. Through the window, I could see guests arriving, Ethan among them. Our eyes met briefly before Victoria intercepted him, steering him toward the garden. Time to get ready, dear. Eleanor handed me a glass of champagne. For your nerves. I waited until she left before pouring it into a plant. The last time I'd accepted a drink from her, I'd woken up with missing hours and signed papers I didn't remember seeing. Grant appeared in the doorway, immaculate in his tuxedo. Cold feet. Just thinking about Marissa. Ah yes, terrible business. He moved closer, adjusting his cufflinks, the ones I'd given him for our first anniversary. You know, it's interesting. The police found her phone. Lots of calls to a federal prosecutor. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And to you, Grant. I've worked so hard, Lila. Built this life, this reputation. Did you really think I'd let you and your little friends tear it all down? He touched my cheek, gentle but firm. You have two choices. Walk down those stairs, smile for the cameras, sign the papers, and live a very comfortable life. Or join Marissa. Your choice. But choose quickly, we have guests waiting. Through the window, I saw Victoria slip something into Ethan's drink. He took a sip, then another. My phone buzzed in my purse, Rosa's number. I reached for it, but Grant was faster. Ah, our friendly convenience store clerk. He read the message aloud. Car ready at back gate. Now or never. He crushed the phone in his hand. You've been busy. Downstairs, Eleanor's voice carried up. Places everyone. The ceremony's about to begin. Grant offered his arm. Shall we, dear? The papers are all ready. Just a few signatures, and this unfortunate chapter can end. Unless you'd prefer a different ending. I took his arm, feeling the weight of the recorder in my dress pocket, the one that had captured every word of his threat. But as we descended the stairs, I saw Ethan slumped in his chair, Victoria hovering nearby, and realized with crushing clarity that evidence only matters if you're alive to present it. The ceremony started perfectly, until Marissa walked through the garden arch. Alive, disheveled, and holding a manila envelope. Grant's hand tightened on my arm as the guests gasped. Victoria moved toward her, but Ethan suddenly stood, surprisingly steady. The drink hadn't affected him at all. "Federal agents," he shouted. "Nobody move." Everything happened at once. Victoria lunged for Marissa, revealing a concealed weapon. Eleanor screamed. Grant tried to pull me toward the house, but I planted my feet, finally finding my voice. "It's over, Grant." "Nothing's over," he snarled, his public mask cracking. "You think you've won? I own this town. One phone call." "To who?" Marissa stepped closer, opening the envelope. "The judge you bribed? The clients whose money you've been laundering? They're all in custody." Grant released me, reaching into his jacket. But before he could grab whatever was hidden there, Eleanor stepped between us. "Enough," she said, her voice trembling. "I found the letters, Grant. The ones from that poor girl who disappeared last year. I thought I could protect you, fix things like always. But," she turned to me, "I'm so sorry, Lila. I should have seen it sooner." "Mother, don't be dramatic." Grant's smile was desperate now. "Everything I did was for our family, our reputation. Was it for family when you planned to frame Lila for Marissa's disappearance?" Eleanor's words cut through the garden like ice. "When you had Victoria drug her at our dinners, so she'd sign those documents?" The guests were filming now, live-streaming Grant's unraveling to the very social media audience he'd cultivated so carefully. "You're all ungrateful," he spat. "After everything I've given you. The only thing you gave me," I said, removing the recorder from my dress, "was evidence." Grant lunged forward, but Rosa appeared from among the guests, her convenience store uniform replaced by a federal marshal's badge. She caught his arm as Ethan moved in with handcuffs. "Grant Harrington," Ethan's voice carried across the garden, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, money laundering. You can't prove anything." I held up my phone, playing the recording from upstairs. His earlier threats echoed through the stunned silence. "Actually," Marissa smiled, "we can prove everything. Your hidden accounts, your shell companies, even your deleted texts. Being your social media manager had its advantages, Grant. You should have checked who really had admin access to your cloud storage." As they led Grant away, Eleanor touched my arm. "The letters," she whispered. "The ones that started all this? They were from me. I had to wake you up somehow. I watched my husband being driven away, feeling neither victory nor vengeance. Just a quiet certainty that sometimes the greatest act of revenge is simply reclaiming your own story." 6 months after the vow renewal ceremony that never happened, I found myself unlocking the door to my new office at the women's shelter. The nameplate read Lila Matthews. I'd taken back my maiden name, along with everything else Grant had tried to take from me. A young woman sat in the waiting area, clutching her purse like a shield. Emily Chun, according to her intake form. 28, married to a respected businessman. The bruises she was trying to hide under her sleeve told a different story. "The first step is the hardest," I said, recognizing my past self in her trembling hands. Rosa, now officially the shelter's security coordinator, gave me a knowing nod as she passed by. On her desk sat a familiar blue vase, the one Eleanor had given me at my first wedding. She'd donated it to the shelter, along with half her fortune, after Grant's sentencing. Marissa burst into my office during lunch, waving her phone. "Have you seen this?" It was a letter, posted on social media. Grant's public confession and apology, carefully crafted by his new prison-appointed therapist. The comments section was flooded with supporters calling for forgiveness, redemption. "Are you okay?" Marissa asked. I thought about the similar letter I'd received privately last week, the one that felt more genuine, more broken. The one I still hadn't decided how to answer. "I'm better than okay," I said, showing her the photo on my desk, me, Marissa, and Ethan at the grand opening of the shelter's legal aid clinic. "I'm free." That evening, I stopped at the convenience store where it had all started. A new clerk was working, but the security camera that had captured Grant's associates threatening Rosa still blinked steadily in the corner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure there's evidence. At home, my real home, a small apartment with a garden on the balcony, I found another envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping about Victoria's plea deal and a short note in Eleanor's handwriting. Some roses have thorns for a reason. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, asking about dinner next week. We were taking things slow, learning to trust in small steps. After all, I had other priorities now. I looked at Emily's intake form again, thinking about tomorrow's session. About all the women still trapped in beautiful houses with ugly secrets. About how revenge sometimes looks like rebellion, and rebellion sometimes looks like planting vegetables where roses used to grow. Grant's public letter had ended with a question. Can you ever forgive me? But he was asking the wrong question. The real question was, could I forgive myself for staying silent so long? The answer was growing stronger every day, with every woman who walked through my door, ready to write her own ending.